Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's Space and to Open House, Concordia's Open House this weekend. Thank you for joining us for today's event, learning about being a graduate researcher and public scholar. Now, to help situate you, we're streaming to YouTube live from Space, and we are located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Here at Space, we work with our university community, mobilizing knowledge, co-creating daily activities that examine research questions and projects that are in development here across the university. We're running today's event as a live streamed meeting. So everyone online on Zoom, your comments are very welcome in the chat. Those of you in the space, if you have questions at the end, we'll get a microphone to you. With that, it's very much my pleasure to hand the microphone to public scholar alumnus, Andrea Cartile. Andrea.
Hello, thank you so much. And thanks very much to Space for hosting us. My name is Andrea Cartile. I am a PhD student or candidate in mechanical and aerospace engineering. And I was a public scholar last year, and I am here with my lovely panelists. And so we have Brogan, Asfar, and Laura. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about the graduate student experience, as well as our trajectory into this public scholarship program and what that is. So I will ask everyone to kick us off by a round table of introductions. And if you don't mind, Brogan, we will start with you. So if you could tell me your name, your program, and what you're studying.
Sure. So yes, my name is Brogan Stewart. I'm doing a PhD in environmental science, and I'm in the geography department. I specifically look at animal behavior and the complicated relationship with environmental change. So I use Japanese macaques as my model organism, and I'm looking at a few different things. So I look at disabled primates and that complicated relationship with environmental change. So how the environment can disable them, but also how they adapt with their disabilities to the environment and survive within that environment. Then I also look at disability from when the Japanese macaques are born with a disability. Are they able to adapt, and are they stress-free by the time they're adults and have adapted to those disabilities, or are they constantly stressed by them their entire lives? I also look at if you have an environment like a zoo with a less complex enclosure versus the wild, can we indicate from the monkey's behavior if they're stressed out by that environment? So does their behavior show stress the less complex their environment is? So I'm looking at a number of different things within my PhD.
Thanks so much, Andrea, for having us. I am Asfar Adib. I am a PhD candidate in electrical and computer engineering. And I work with electrical signals, something that comes from our body, particularly the heart signal, which is also called ECG, electrocardiogram. And I analyze this signal using machine learning with the purpose of saying if someone is an adult or a child. So in one word, this is all about age verification, because as we know, there are many things where people have to be an adult to get those stuff, like maybe alcohol or maybe lottery tickets. But right now, this thing is very much based on documents, ID documents. And when we share our ID documents for age verification, there are big privacy concerns. So that's why we are having a look that can we use something from our body to check if someone is adult or minor. And that's what my research is about. And I basically use these pretty small things, smartwatches. So I collect people's data. I analyze it to say that if someone is a child or adult or what's the age segment. And it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Laura Dominguez. I'm studying my PhD in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry, and my research is on antibiotic resistance. So it's probably a term that you've heard before. It's basically when bacteria or some pathogens become resistant to the drugs that are usually used to treat them. So the treatments, the antibiotics are not doing anything to them. So the infections are able to progress further, and it causes a lot of deaths worldwide. It's an increasing problem. And what I do in the lab is I evolve bacteria and I study the stress responses. So bacteria just in nature live in very stressful environments. There's a lack of nutrients, there's a lot of competition. So they've evolved over millions of years ways to cope with this stress. So they have stress response mechanisms. And then when they are subjected to antibiotic treatments, these stress mechanisms might start acting up. So I'm studying how these stress mechanisms might contribute to the evolution of resistance. So hopefully we can find ways of hijacking bacteria's own mechanisms in order to slow down the resistance from occurring. So what I do in the lab is I evolve the bacteria to very high concentrations of the drugs, and then I see how it is happening, like in their genes, how mutations are occurring. And that's it.
That's wonderful. So as you can see, we have a phenomenal panel of very diverse fields and also really interesting expertise. So I want to transition from what you're currently studying to way back when you were little. What did you want to do when you grew up? And what has been your trajectory into arriving into this PhD? And was this something you always dreamed of specifically, or have you wandered through life to get to where you are today? So if you would like, we'll start in reverse order, if that's okay.
Yes, so I was very guilty of having no idea what I wanted to do by the time it came to making that decision, like what I wanted to study and such. I had no idea. So my thought process was, I have no problem with math. I enjoy it. So I'm just gonna study any engineering, and then maybe if I don't like it, I can hop around, switch. So I did my bachelor's in Mexico. I studied biotechnology engineering, but I ended up really liking the biology aspect of it. I really enjoyed like all the applications that it could have, and also the opportunity to do many different things. Like I didn't have to stay just in research. I could go to the industry, or like you can do many different things. So I also had that flexibility of choosing a little bit what I wanted to do as I went. So yeah, I studied biotechnology engineering, and then just because of like Mexico's landscape and job prospects, I minored in bioprocess engineering, which is more about the scaling up of the process, mostly for industry purposes, because I thought that would give me more of a chance of getting a job on my field. But then I ended up getting a very important opportunity in my life, a research internship actually here in Concordia, where I studied in the lab that I'm currently doing my PhD in. And then that really opened up all my perspective. I found that I could also maybe just go to research directly. In my head, I did not think ever that I would like go directly to my PhD after my bachelor's. I didn't even think I wanted to do like grad school necessarily, but this experience really like changed my whole view, and it really carved like my path. I really enjoyed the research that I did here. I was studying back then like just doing genetic engineering in order to express clusters that are not usually expressed in bacteria, with the aim of potentially finding bioactive compounds. I really liked the research. I really liked the school. I love the city. So yeah, I went back to Mexico. I graduated. I worked for a little bit. I wanted also like to have a little bit of an industry experience just to see if I liked it. Turns out I didn't like it as much as research, but it was also a very good experience. And I just decided to apply for Concordia to come back as a grad student. And then I applied for my master's, and they offered me to do a direct entry to the PhD. It was a bit of a tough decision as well, because it was not something that I was like planning for necessarily back then. But then after a lot of thinking of yeah, just evaluating my options, and just knowing that I really like the project, that I really like the environment, that my supervisor was very supportive, I decided that it was the right call, and I'm here right now, and I really enjoying it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's a great question. And I have actually a little more to share, because I think I have a really interesting trajectory. So like Laura also, I don't think at any point of my life I had anything called aim in life. So, and I have to be honest that being engineer was never like a dream for me. So when I was a kid, I was more fond of history, international affairs, literature, this kind of stuff. But the thing is, I was born and brought up in Bangladesh, and they are in Bangladesh context or in South Asian culture. So parents want their kids either to be doctors or engineers, because these have good career potentials. And both my parents, they are doctors, they are physicians. So I thought to become engineer. So I did my undergrad in engineering. And then at that time, telecom sector was really booming. So I joined the telecom sector in the industry. I started to work. And in parallel, I did my MBA as a part-time student. So at that time, I really got the fun of technology because we were deploying mobile communication, internet back there in Bangladesh. And I was seeing the impact on the people, especially in a developing country. When new technology comes, people are really excited. So I was really feeling that connection that, yes, technology can do good things in life. And I got more interested to do something which really matters for people. Then eventually, after working for around 8.5 years in the industry, I was feeling the need for a change. And luckily, I got a chance to immigrate to Canada. So when I arrived here, I honestly, again, I did not have anything in my head what to do, where to go. But somehow I feel I should go back to studies because technology has advanced a lot. I need to catch up what's happening. And good for me, I got an admission offer here in Concordia. So I came to Montreal. And as Laura said, Montreal is amazing. I love the city. I love the vibrance. And when I started my PhD, again, same scenario, I did not know what exactly to research on. So I was doing my courses, we have to do at least 4 or 5 courses in engineering for the first 2 or 3 terms. Somehow I came in touch with some friends here at Concordia. So again, thanks to the Concordia community, I came to know about some idea about age verification. So I had some friends in other departments. They were running a campaign for online safety for women and children. So they were saying that the online space is very unsafe. There is no regulation. There is no monitoring. So we need to have this age verification. So somehow I got engaged with them. I started joining their campaigns, protesting on the street, doing sessions like this in different places. And then I was thinking, can I relate my research to that? Because I am working with electrical signals, being a PhD student in electrical engineering. And there was a big technical gap because theoretically we did have the technologies for age verification, but practically it was not working and it was not making the right appeal to the people. So that's how I came to this idea. And I was trying to do some research in my lab. Of course, it took some time to convince my supervisors, but when I got some conference papers published, they said that, yes, you can work with that. And ultimately, I started working with this idea. So I have to say that I really did not have any future plan at any point of my life. Things just kept working out, but I have enjoyed it so far and luckily I'm here today.
Yeah, I kind of had a roundabout way of getting here too. So when I was really young, I always loved animals. I loved being outside and I knew I always wanted to work with animals. So when I first went to university, I was like, oh, I'll be a veterinarian because that's the only option apparently for people. So I went into that. And when I was doing that, I actually shadowed a veterinarian. So for 2 weeks, I followed one around at her clinic. And the majority of the time she was spayed and neutering cats and dogs. And that's not really what I had in mind by wanting to work with and help animals. So after that, I kind of faltered and I was like, oh, maybe I should change my major, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went into actuarial sciences, which is completely different. It's math based. Yeah. And then I did that for a while. And that's actually when I came to Concordia because they offer that program. And I stuck in that for a while, but then I realized even though I was good at math, I hated it. So I'd go home every day with the homework and be like, oh, why? And it wasn't, again, I was like, can I really picture myself doing this my entire life? And the answer was no. So then I changed my major again to environmental science because I really liked the aspect of working with the environment and what that could bring. And that's actually how I found my current work with my PhD, looking at how animal behavior and environmental change intersect. And so it kind of led me back to working with animals, but in the way that I actually wanted to, where I'm helping them in the long run with what's going on right now worldwide. So my background's kind of more in climatology as well. So I studied climate change. Yeah. And then also I was going to say, I did go on that stint where I studied math, but I've actually found that very helpful. I have a minor in math in my undergrad because of that. And also I use math in my analysis all the time now. So it's not like that knowledge or classes were ever wasted. They went towards something. Again, it might be different for someone that takes classes that are maybe don't have anything to do with it. Math was quite helpful, but yeah, I found it. No knowledge is wasted. So
I 100% agree. I am also a recovering veterinarian life trajectory. I'm now in aerospace aircraft certification. So like that's totally different. So it goes to show you that your trajectory or your plan in life when you're small changes just so drastically, and you never know where you're going to end up. And you also never know what kind of knowledge is going to be useful later on in your life. So no knowledge is wasted, I think, is a really good philosophy as well. And it's all very useful and exciting. So we'll move on from this a wonderful, exciting topic. And I wanted to ask, when you were looking for universities, or even maybe once you got here, do you have any recollection of a moment where you were like, yes, Concordia is definitely the correct place for me. I absolutely fit in here. And I think we'll go in, we'll like doing some order stuff here. We'll start with you, Asfar.
Yeah, another great question. So I think when I first came here, we were having the grad base camp run by the grad pool skills, and they were telling us a lot of different things, how to be prepared for grad life. And I really like that, because I think I just feel that I am not alone. I could see other new grad students like me, they are having the same learnings. And we have actually got honest tips, like it will be a challenging journey. There will be ups and downs. So we have to take that as a part of our life, but it's important to have the fun, keep enjoying. And I think Concordia does a very good job in that aspect, professional development, because of course, every grad school, they are doing great work in research, but helping the grad students in other aspects, professional development, knowing other things in life. I personally was an instructor for grad school skills. I used to take leadership courses. So I was really lucky to be both a student, also as an instructor. I could see that, yes, these things really means a lot for the grad students. And I really love that part of Concordia.
That's wonderful. And just for your information, so Grad Pro Skills is learning, they provide a ton of workshops for complementary skills, for life skills, professional skills. And there are a bazillion workshops that you can take. It's all for free. It's included in your graduate studies. It's a phenomenal resource. And there's a presentation, I believe, at 1 o'clock on Grad Pro Skills in the EV building. So don't miss it. Would you like to go next? Sure.
Yeah, for me, again, I switched to Concordia for a specific program, but then I stayed because I really liked the people in my department. I really liked the profs that were there, and I really liked the students. Like, I just found it was like kind of close knit, to be honest. So I enjoyed it. And I found that because I was more personal with my profs and the other students, I made a lot of connections and like friendships with like-minded individuals that went like a long way. Instead of just showing up, taking a class and leaving, it actually was deeper than that. And then the other thing that really stuck out to me is my supervisor, Dr. Sarah E. Turner. I adore her. She is amazing. And whenever I talk to other students that don't get along as well with their supervisor, or maybe like, I don't want to like obviously bash anyone, but you know, there's some supervisors aren't as good as others. Let's be real, right? So people like that, I just feel bad for them. They don't have the same experience as I do at all, where like I get along so well with her, like to the point where I can like text her about things. Like it's just like a really great relationship, and I wouldn't change that for anything.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's a really good point about it. Choosing a supervisor at graduate studies level is the most critical thing. And you really want somebody that you can work well with, that you get along with, you have the same objectives and kind of just the same vibes. And then you'll have, yeah, it's a tough program, but you'll have a really positive experience if you have really strong support through supervision. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to echo that. I think I did have an advantage in the sense that I had been here for like the internship. So I knew that my supervisor was very supportive, very knowledgeable. I really like the lab culture as well, and the research too. Like I wanted something that allowed me to do like something with a health application to help people. And I think the research carried out at Concordia is very good. They have some very interesting projects. But I think for me, the thing that really like made me stay and come back was the fact that I think universities sometimes, grad school and especially academia, sometimes can be very competitive. Like the environment can become very toxic. And for me, I think in Concordia, that was not my experience at all. I think I heard like very bad, like just comments on other universities. Like I don't want to say which ones, but sometimes like there's very like a lot of competition between the students, between the labs, between the supervisors even. In Concordia, I feel like there's a lot more cooperation. I feel like people are very willing to help each other out, like be it lending reagents or equipment or like just helping people out. I think that's very, very important, like not just within the lab, but also within departments, within the university at large. I think that's something that's very, very valuable because it can shape your graduate experience completely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And even at the undergraduate level, like our community of students is just so supportive and collaborative. I feel that it's quite unique to this university, actually, because we're large. We're a huge university. I think we're 55,000 students or something. And yet everyone is just really supportive of each other, which I think is like so wonderful. So what a great way to do something difficult like study. It's really nice. So we'll move on from there. So I'd like to talk a little bit more specifically about funding. So money, of course, nothing is for free, and especially with the increase in cost of living, people, this is an important topic to consider, topic of conversation, an important thing to consider when you're looking for graduate work. So I want to talk a little bit about how just where your funding sources are coming from, how you've managed to fund yourself or be funded throughout your degree. So if we want, we'll start this way again. Is that okay? Perfect.
Well, so yeah, I have funding. I'm fortunate enough to have funding for different sources. So there's like this stipend from like my supervisor from the department. I also TA classes, which helps also with the funding. I was also able, if you don't know about the MyTech's internship, like the Global Link Research internship, I encourage you to check it out because it's a very, very useful opportunity. Through that research internship, I was also able to apply for a fellowship. So if you complete your internship and then you decide to come back to Canada for your graduate studies, you can apply for a fellowship. So I was able to secure that fellowship, which has helped a lot through my degree. And then I was also able to get some funding from Concordia, from the International Students Award of Excellence and the Doctoral Entrance Award, which have been very, very helpful as well. And then there are also other funding that you can apply just throughout your degree. If you're like a Canadian citizen, you can apply to NSERC. If you're international, there's like the PBEEE or FRQNT. I was also able to get a FRQNT scholarship, which has been, again, very helpful. So I think there's many opportunities that you can keep applying for. There are also some others specific for your research, like there might be some like niche scholarships. So it's always good to be on the lookout because there's quite a bit of options out there.
That's wonderful. And just there are a lot of acronyms in there. And as you go along in your studies, they're gonna become part of your vernacular. So there's federal and provincial funding sources, and there's just different bodies. So one of them was MyTax, which is it's not even an acronym; it's actually a word, and that's just a funding source that you can go through. And they have many different programs. And TA stands for teaching assistant.
Yeah, so similarly for me, I got stipends from my professors for the first 3 years, so which was really important for me to start. I also got the entrance fellowship, which covers my tuition fees. And I work as a TA for undergrads. As I was saying, I work for grad pre-skills, and so those were nice sources of income. And also, like Laura, I applied for the MyTax Accelerate, so which was a great source both for fun, also for experiential learning, because it helps you to work with the industry partner. I got some niche funds from some industries. And last but not the least, now being a public scholar, we do get some stipends, so that also helps. And I have to say that Concordia does a good job of promoting different funding scopes. Every time we are getting the emails from the graduate school that, yes, these are the funding scopes. There are a lot of workshops. And I can share a very recent personal experience. So FRQNT, which is the Quebec government's funding agency. So this year, when they were open, the scholarships were open, honestly, I did not notice it first because I'm starting my 5th year of my PhD and I was not sure if I can apply. But somehow the Dean of Engineering, they notified my professor that, can you ask your student, he might apply for this and he might be able to make a good application. So then I start applying. So I was really amazed, like the dean or my professor, they are actually calling me and they are showing me the funding path. So this is really good. And I guess there are more scopes.
Yeah, absolutely. And also receiving a lot of applications require letters of support as well. And so Concordia, I have never had somebody say no to a letter of support. People are just so generous with their time and preparing letters and helping you try and get funding.
Yeah. Something I didn't realize going into graduate research, like I found this out the last year of my undergrad when I was doing my honors research, is that you spend well, for me, I don't know about you guys, I spent like a quarter of my graduate research applying for funding. Like it's a huge amount of time and you don't expect that going into it, but it's true. And it's actually a skill. Like you learn how to do it better and better. Your first funding applications, you can go back and read them and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wrote that. But then you get better and better at it. And then hopefully you can start see the funding coming in at that point. For me, I got the federal funding. So I got NSERC and then FRQ&T as well. And so that's been extremely helpful. And then there's also, because I study animals, I have funding through the Quebec Centre for Biodiversity Science, QCBS. And then I'm also part of the LEADS program. You're right, there's so many acronyms. Let's see if I can do this. Leadership in Environment and Digital Sustainability. Yeah. So for that one, because I have federal funding, they give me funding to go to conferences. But I know that other people that don't have federal funding also receive funding from them. So that's another good program you can be a part of if you study environmental work. I'm trying to think what else. I find that Concordia has a lot of internal awards. So if you can look through the website and find different things that work for you. Because I do international research in Japan, I was lucky enough to be the Concordia International Scholar last year. And so they funded lots of my work to go there. So yeah, you just got to pretty much look and find again what works for you.
That's wonderful. And I wanted to also pick up on the conference awards. So as a grad student, you get to go to conferences, which means you get to travel the world, which is super cool. You have to write a paper. That's the trade. But then people will give you money to be able to do that. So you don't have to pay for your own conference travel. It's a lot like traveling for work. And one of those is the Conference Exposition Award that's internal to Concordia. I think they'll give you up to $1,000. There's a whole funding model, which is wonderful. So you can help subsidize your travel.
Can I add something quickly? So apart from your studies and related funding, there are a lot of other funding. Like there is the experiential learning team, sustainability team. So they fund you for different projects. Like as I work as a TA for technical writing, I applied for a fund to make a website where I can keep my students' good works, and I got that funding. So there are so many different scopes. And as Brogan said, that there is a long list. I think Brogan's list is already long, the amount of funding she got already. And there are more. So it's very good to explore. And that's how actually we need to have an open mind. So we need to keep our eyes open that where are the scopes. Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Success. Technology. So that's super. So you have an idea of there's money, you can do this. If you aren't coming in with $1 million in the bank, that's no problem. You can find some money to help fund your graduate studies. And then it's stressful enough to focus your stress on doing the actual work as opposed to finding the money, minus the applications part, which does take some time, but it's also related. So you're practicing explaining your research to a funding agent. So that in turn will help you with your own writing and organizing your ideas. So it's not time wasted, I don't think. Personal opinion. So we'll move on to some individual questions. So things that our panelists would like to touch upon in terms of their own personal experiences. So I think if it's okay, Brogan, we'll start with you. So something that you wanted to touch upon was starting a family and doing a PhD at the same time. Congratulations on starting your family. It's very exciting. And so I just wanted to ask you about your experience in terms of planning this new life change at the same time as doing your PhD. So if you'd like to elaborate and some of the resources available to you.
Sure. Yeah, a reason I wanted to touch on that is because when I was in my undergrad, some of my friends didn't want to go into graduate research because they knew they wanted to start families. So they didn't think it was necessarily possible for them to do both because a PhD can be 4 years plus. Like we know it's rarely 4 years. And so it is possible, as you can see, to have a baby during grad school. Again, I was lucky enough to have the federal funding, which has amazing maternity leave. I have 12 months fully paid. The FRQNT also has maternity leave. I believe it's 8 months paid. So there are possibilities. And because I have funding, I haven't looked into other options around the university, but I'm sure there are some. And I know that if you work as a TA or an RA, you are also covered by the government maternity leave because you have you're a wage earner with taxable income. So there are options for that. Also, Concordia has the parent center. So once the baby's born, they have like a daycare opportunity, and they've got lots of different resources where you can actually like drop your kids off there even. And you can there's different support groups there and different things like that. Trying to think what else. I'm honestly still trying to figure this all out. As you can imagine, I've been busy. So I'm like kind of learning about these things as I go. I still have a few more months though to figure this all out.
That's wonderful. And it's nice to know that there are, supportive options for if you'd like to do both of these things at the same time. So thank you very much. It's perfect. So we'll move on to Aspar. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit. So you went into industry for a while after your undergrad, and then you came back. You also did an MBA, which is wild. And then you came back to do a PhD afterwards. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your experience of transitioning from the workplace back into academia, coming back as a quote unquote a mature student is what they call us, and your experience with that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So the first thing is making any change is always good in life, personal opinion. So I was working in industry for 8.5 years. So I really needed a change and coming to Canada and studying graduate studies. So that was a good change for me. But at the same time, when I came back to school after all these years, so I did an MBA, but that was not that kind of serious study like here in graduate studies. So I was like back to class, and that was before COVID. So in the class, writing in pen and paper, giving the exams. So honestly, the first year was really tough. And I was having what we call imposter syndrome. I was doubting myself that am I doing the right thing? Can I really survive? And of course, coming back after all these years, as you said, Andrea, being matured student, and as you see, I don't have much hair in my head, which does so that I'm a little elder than you, most of you guys. So I was really doubting myself that, can I really survive? But somehow it worked out. And the environment is really welcoming, but because you are not actually, cornered, or you are not categorized like this is a person who has coming after long, or this is someone who is just carrying on the studies. So everyone is treated equally, which is great. And I did get good help from my friends, from my professors. And also it's great scope of learning, because while I was working in industry, maybe I could not follow what's happening in the tech world, because technology is always moving in every day. So coming back after all these years, it was a great chance for me to learn. And in my life, I have people from Gen Z, millions like me, even maybe the earlier generation. So different generations together, different thoughts, and this is really fun. So it was a good experience. And again, thanks to Concordia for the different resources, which keeps me spirited. I guess we are going to talk about the extracurricular part later on, but I have to mention that here we have so many different resources, including for the space. We can come here, listen to others, relax by ourselves, because as Brogan said, she spent quarter of her times for funding application. And I think I spend quarter of my times just to make myself comfortable so that I don't get stressed out. So that was really important. But luckily it's been a good journey, and we're looking forward.
Yeah, learning how to manage yourself in a PhD, I think, is most of the battle, actually.
Exactly.
Then the other small part is doing the work. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Laura, so je voulais savoir, alors tu es venue ici, je vais le demander en français, je vais traduire aussi en anglais. Tu es venue ici et tu commences à apprendre le français au Québec, à Montréal, et je voulais te demander ton expérience, les ressources qui sont disponibles à toi pour apprendre le français, how you are experiencing this. So how you are experiencing learning French in Quebec and living in Montreal dans la langue française.
Yes, it was a great experience for me. One of the reasons why I wanted to come back to Montreal specifically is because I really enjoy learning languages. I was an English teacher back home for a while, and I really enjoy it. I like it. So I thought Montreal was a great place to start learning French, but also not as, it wasn't as what's the word, like, as bad, because if it doesn't work out, you can still have like some English to get by. But I wanted that experience. So I came back and I learned that there's this classes offered by the Quebec government, which were amazing. I took some classes from the Ministère d'Immigration, and they were great because it not only helps you like build a language, but also it allows you to integrate into the culture. Like you learn more about the culture and the people, and it's also like a class where there's a lot of newcomers too, so you meet people who are like in your same situation. So it's very, very nice, very helpful, and I really enjoyed learning it. Also Concordia offers like some opportunities to learn French and to practice it. I remember I was still back in Mexico and I was like a bit worried that I didn't speak French like very well back then. So I took some classes from Grad Per Skills. They had like a French conversation at an atelier. And it was very helpful too, because again, you meet the students that might be in your same department and you practice. So it's a very, very good resource. And yeah, it's a very good way of learning, I believe.
C'est ça, c'est super important d'avoir l'opportunité de pratiquer à parler en français. Et les cours ou les workshops de conversation, je pense, c'est vraiment le setting idéal pour avoir cet apprentissage. And I think it's a positive community in terms of learning French and being able to transition into living in Quebec as well. Thank you so much. So we'll go our next segment. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the Public Scholars Program. So this program, I believe, started in 2015 or 2016. Somebody will definitely correct me in a video comment later if that's incorrect. And it's been going on for every year since then. So we have a cohort of, I believe, about 10 scholars that are chosen every year. And we are trained and do all of this communications stuff, which is really, really interesting. So we get all sorts of social media training, and then we get to practice translating our research into a language that is understandable by all audiences, which is, of course, the most practical thing. Why would we only focus on people within our own field? It's not useful to the whole world. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience with the Public Scholars Program. So I was in it last year. It was phenomenal. And you guys are the current cohort, which is really exciting. So I wanted to ask what attracted you to the program? And then how has your experience been so far? And then do you think this is something that you will use throughout the rest of your life in terms of communications and skills? So if we can start with Brogan, is that okay?
Yeah, so what attracted me to it, so I had already started dabbling in sharing my research on social media, but I found like LinkedIn really daunting for some reason. Like I didn't know how to interact on there because I was so used to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I'm just going to call it Twitter. Okay. So I found it really helpful with the program that they like actually walk you through how to do a LinkedIn properly, and someone actually goes through your profile and helps you with it, which like for me, I was like, thank you. And now LinkedIn, I go on all the time and I don't find it daunting, and I know that my profile is fine. Yeah. And then the other thing is definitely the help with like writing opinion pieces, like op-eds, and just opportunities to talk to people within like the communications department at Concordia and have people behind you. So if you do an interview, you can actually like practice it beforehand, which is really nice. I have had a bad interview in my past, and since then I'm like, oh gosh, like, so it's nice to have that resource to talk to people doing that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's a great experience and it's a lot of fun, like just like this interview, like talking with you all, this sharing our experiences. And for me, like I always love to do things which are more connected with the general people. So as I was saying, I love technology because when I can see the impact of technology on people's lives. So I was really eager to be a part of the public scholar program because that can help me a better scope to reach out. And I have been learning a lot. So as Brogan was saying, the trainings are very high quality trainings. We are being taught how to write a good op-ed, how to communicate with the journalists, policymakers, and so on. And personally, being an engineering student, I did have the bad habit of becoming very technical. Like when I was asked to talk about my research, maybe I was always being driven away with my own work. But now I'm learning how to make things more understandable for people. So there are a lot of learnings. And of course, I get inspired by my fellow colleagues. Like when I see Brogan going to a distant part of the world, posting a picture with a monkey, a very cute monkey, or when I see Laura publishing something in Nature Journal, or when I see you, Angia, working for the industry. So this is really inspiring. So it's a great program.
Yeah, me too. Like I first heard about the program from like one of those emails that they sent, and I was like, well, this is a very, very nice initiative. But then I think it was just the imposter syndrome in me. I was like, I wouldn't even think of applying because I just didn't think I would get it. But then there was this prerequisite, like a training that we had to do before even applying, and I was like, I'm just gonna take the training because I was generally interested in learning and how I can translate that into my research or what I can do in order to better communicate my findings or what I'm doing. And then after I was done with that, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like apply and see what happens. And I ended up getting it, and I was very, very, very happy about that. It's been a great experience, and I really think it's something as that as a researcher you should prioritize, because it, like, I don't know, I think we tend to just be in the lab like working all the time, and then like we lose that part of like why we're doing it. So we're doing it because we want to like to learn new things. So it's like good to be trying to encourage other people to also be interested in what you're interested in, like things that you think are important for other people to know. So just got me thinking how like I don't think my mom knows what I'm doing. Like I don't think she could explain what my research is. And I think it's very important, like for us to like take a step back and see the big picture and why we're doing what we're doing and why it's important for other people to also know what we're working on.
Can I just add something? Yeah, another reason that I think this is super important is because there's so much fake news and like miscommunication out there when it comes around like lots of different science. Like for instance, my background's in climatology. So it's very upsetting to me to see the inaccurate science that's put out there by a lot of people. And a lot of that is well funded. Like, so for instance, I wrote an op-ed about the climate crisis recently, and I was shocked that the comments were from climate change deniers. I was like, is that still a thing? How is that even possible? And then I was talking to people in my department that study climatology, and they were saying that they're actually funded to be active on the internet and leave as many comments as they can on things that have to do with climate change, which is like ridiculous to me. And even like talking to some of my friends, they'll like read things like that, but they don't know what's true and what's fake. So I think it's really important for us as researchers who have this knowledge to communicate it in a good way that can hopefully overshadow the people that are communicating things that aren't accurate.
That's wild. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Go for it.
Yeah, another quick point. So with all these great thoughts, I mean, I can just add what Laura was saying, that like her, I think my mom, my dad, and my sister, and I mean, my friends' family, they now better understand what I am doing. So while we are reaching out to public, it's also giving us a great scope to explain to our near and dear ones that what they are doing. Otherwise, I was known as a nerd PhD student. So now actually I can tell a better way that what I'm doing. And I think the same applies for us. So that's another great benefit.
And I think that one of the misconceptions we have about this type of communication is that it's dumbing down the research, making it it's like a very kind of condescending tone about this type of communication, but it's not. You're just reframing your work to communicate it to somebody else who is just in a different field. Like the people of the world are all experts in their own right, in their own fields. And just because they haven't studied your particular niche problem doesn't mean that, this is in any way retracting or reducing a reductive explanation of what you're doing. It's just making it into a communicatable format for an audience that is not specializing in what you're doing, which is what everybody should be kind of taught in terms of the skills in communication, because that's what's going to allow us to work better together in what is now like an international platform. Nothing happens in isolation anymore. So I think that these types of skills are essential for everybody. And it's really cool because the precursor to the Public Scholars Program, we have to do like a communications course in order to apply. So I believe it's a 6-week course. So, and we get like different workshops every week on how to do things like LinkedIn and how to interact on social media platforms, like training for things that we use every day just by existing on the internet that nobody else has really had training on how to use. It's kind of a trial and error thing. So I think that's open to all PhD students, I believe. So, which is really a wonderful resource to be able to function in the world. So I think we have a couple more minutes, so we'll do maybe one more question. And I just wanted to ask you about extracurricular activities. So we touched a little bit upon the community aspect of Concordia, and I think that community is really the driving force in having a positive experience at university in life, and also specifically in graduate studies. So I wonder if you can talk about one of the things that you are involved in outside of within the Concordia community, or even the broader Montreal community outside of your research. And if you don't mind, Laura, we'll start with you.
Yes. So I've been doing I think a big part of grad school is try to balance like the workload in your life, like try for it to not to consume you whole. So I think like staying a bit active like throughout this years has been very, very important. So yeah, I've been trying like different activities. So I've been trying to go to the gym. Sometimes it's yeah, very, very important. I also go to the gym that's like in Concordia, like in front of the campus. So that's very, very helpful. Sometimes I even go there during my incubation periods, and then I come back to get my cells. But yes, so I've been trying to stay active. Also, the public scholars program, I think, has been something very helpful to be doing on this side, because it's developing a lot of skills that you wouldn't normally just with your research, like communicating skills. And yeah, it's been very, very helpful. And yeah, just science communication, I think I've learned a little bit of that. It's something that I'm very interested in. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, for me, so I love to explore around the campus, and I think Concordia is special because we have two different campuses which actually complement each other. Loyola is like a lovely natural place, and downtown is like right at the heart of the city where you can get foods from all parts of the world. So I work here in downtown, and I often go to the multi-faith center, which is right here. So it's a nice place to have some meditation, to have light chat and talk about anything. Also, I was a student ambassador for sustainability, something where Brogan was also very active. So I used to do sustainability campaigns around the campus. Also, I love to write. I write for the Concordia Business Review, which is interesting because it's a magazine from the business school. So there I write about technological stuff in an easy way. So these are all fun, and I love to move around the campus and explore all these things.
I feel like you do way more than that, and you didn't actually say everything. Aspar does 1,000 things. We actually collaborated together even before we were public scholars through the Let's Talk Science. Yeah. So for me, I'm one of the founding members of the Climate Emergency Committee in the department. In 2019, kind of when Greta Thunberg started coming out, we were really concerned about the climate crisis. And as students, we felt like we were studying this. So we were reading these papers and they're like, doom, doom, doom. And it's just like, what do you do about that as an individual? So we got together as a community and decided to start a group where we could do like small actions, and in a way that it's not like the fix all of everything in this huge global crisis, but it's something that really helps with like your eco-anxiety and just your mental health, is doing small actions around the university and being with other people that feel the same way. And so I still have that committee going, and we're very active with, the sustainability ambassadors. And it's been really nice having that as a side thing where I've gotten to meet a lot of people, and we have a lot of collaborations with McGill, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me and opportunities as well, above and beyond my PhD research. And so I encourage people to get involved with different groups. There's so many around Concordia. Again, I obviously went for the environmental ones because that's what I like, but there's so many different ones you can be a part of, and you can start your own even. So that's good.
Do you want to mention Let's Talk Science?
Thank you, Brogan. Yes, honestly, somehow I forgot to mention that, but I volunteer for Let's Talk Science. So we often go to the schools, summer camps, kids centers, and we show science demonstration for kids, very young kids, and that is super fun. So and I'm thankful to some of my fellow scholars, like Brogan was in one of my outreach, then some of others, they also did. So it's a good chance to talk about our things with the kids. And honestly, we can also learn from them because kids, they think very simply. So when they hear us about our stuff, they talk it in their own ways, and then something we can also learn from them. So it's great fun. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for talking about that. And Laura, I'll see you at the gym later. If we cross paths, come say hi. It's a really good resource. So I think we'll probably end there on the questions, and we'll leave some time for questions from the audience. So I would love to thank our panelists. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so happy to have gotten to do this with you and to hear from your perspectives. It's been wonderful. Big thanks to Fourth Space as well for hosting us. And I will pass the mic over, if that's okay. I will not pass the mic over. Thank you.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Perfect.
Hi, my name's Roxanne, and you talked a bit about learning French, integrating into the community, but I wanted to know from the other point of view, what's it like to publish and do research in a language that's not your first language?
Would anybody like to answer this question?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, English is actually my second language, and French maybe the third one. So yeah, it does take some time and effort, but we do have resources here. We have the writing center here at Concordia. They can help you out for whenever you need writing help. Also, every year we have the writing reteach from Grad Pro Skills. So or thesis boost, right? Yeah, thesis boost. So there are options here for you to help you out. And of course, you can reach out to your colleagues, even your professor, they can always help you out when you have this thing.
Yes, same. English is my second language, and I think at the beginning, especially, it might be a little bit like hard just to get used to like reading all the time in English and writing, especially. I think that will come with practice as well. Like if you are just patient with yourself and you are constant, it will be way better. Like at least that was my experience. It might be a bit difficult, but just with a bit of practice. And like Asfer mentioned, the library has a lot of resources too. Like especially with writing, which I think would be one of the most difficult tasks. Like when you're learning writing in a different language, they can review your texts and they can help you, give you feedback. And yeah, I think it is difficult, but I think it also comes with practice.
Just a general shout out to everybody who's doing this in not their first language. It's hard enough in your first language, and that's phenomenal. There are many, many people at Concordia who are doing this in not their first language. Does that answer your question?
I was going to add something actually, Andrea. Hi, everyone. I'm secretly over here. I'm Arwen Fleming. I'm the manager for Graduate Strategic Enrollment and Outreach here at the School of Graduate Studies at Concordia. So Roxanne, I'm not sure if French is your first language, but perfect. Okay. I also wanted to mention that we are offering new workshops in the coming year with Grad Pro Skills. So if you want to come and visit in Grad Corner, we can speak with our staff there, but we're actively increasing our support for Francophone students at Concordia. And we have a new Centre pour étudiantes francophones, which is launching, I think actually 2 weeks ago, technically, but that's always a preoccupation for us. Even before recent things with the Quebec government, we've been always like a very bilingual university in many ways and always trying to make it more accessible for Francophone students. So if you want to talk to me about it more afterwards, I'd really recommend checking with our Grad Pro Skills team as well in EV second floor in the atrium, the top of the stairs, because we are increasing support for researchers who are coming here too that want to just feel more confident about publishing in English. Yeah, that help? Any other question? Okay.
Anyone else?
Questions from online audience?
Anyone online, feel free to put your question in the chat. Oh, we've got one right here.
Hi, I'm not sure, maybe some of you had touched on this, but what's the plan after the PhD? Like, do you want to stay in academia? Do you want to go into industry? I would just like to hear from you on that.
Anyone like to start us off?
Sure. So I kind of just was going with the flow at the beginning. Like I was like in school, like I said, I changed my major a ton of times and I kind of just went with what I enjoyed. So like I said, I really didn't like the one major and I switched and then I started enjoying it. I was like, oh, this is great. And then I started finding out what I could do after. And another thing I should probably mention, I fast tracked from my master's to my PhD, which I think is honestly very beneficial. I was chatting with my friend who goes to university in Chicago, and she did a similar thing. And she was saying that if you want to work in academia nowadays, you kind of need a PhD. So it makes more sense to fast track right away instead of doing 2 years master then PhD. And it depends again, because I think with engineering, it's still like masters that you just need. So it depends again on the field and what you're doing with it. So sometimes it makes more sense to just fast track and save a bit of time there. So I realized through TAing that I hate teaching a lot. So I'm not going to stay in academia, but there's a lot of options for environmental work right now, especially with what's going on globally. So right now I'm keeping my options open. I'm thinking of maybe working with an NGO with animals and conservation, but I was also thinking of maybe working for the government. So things like the SARA Act, so the Species at Risk Act. So I've got a bunch of different options there. Also, I know Hydro-Quebec hires a lot of environmental scientists for like habitat restoration and things like that. So like I have a lot of options in the industry open to me. And those are things I'm going to look into during my mat leave, but I've got some time.
Yeah, so I might be the worst person to answer this question because I hardly make any plans in my life. But yeah, so I did enjoy my teaching work and I'm still enjoying my TA work. But I also like more to do things more, which are like more public engaging, like policy making and other things. So right now I'm working with some technical standard formulation for federal government, like just as a volunteer. So I like those kind of things, maybe trying for policy making or policy consultant jobs. And also, I have to mention about the PhD Career Connect, which happens here every year. Another thing from the Grateful Skills. So they are actually, we, the PhD students, we get a chance to see different scopes in academia, in industry, in government. So the employers come here, we get a chance to talk with them and see what are the options for PhD students, because it's a good question. It might be tricky to get a job after PhD because we do have different expectation, different mindset, but there are a lot of scopes. So for me, I would try for industry. In Montreal, we do have a good technical industry, or maybe policy making jobs in government level. So that's the plan for now.
Yes, so I'm also still trying to decide what I'm going to do after. But so far, I think like through some classes that I've taken like early in my PhD, I realized I really like bioinformatics. That's something that I really want to get into. And so I think after I graduate, I might try to like get an industry job. Also because I think just lab work is very labor intensive. I really enjoy it, but it's also labor intensive, and it's one of those activities or jobs that you probably have to stay put in one like city or something. So I would like also to have a job that allows me more flexibility in that sense. So I really want to get into bioinformatics and potentially getting a job doing something like that. Yeah.
I will be scheduling an existential life crisis at the end of this degree, if it ever ends. And then I am very split between, and so I'm very fortunate. My research, I didn't talk about it, but I'm half in industry, half in academia. So I go to industry, do an internship, come back, and I flip back and forth. I've been doing that since 2016. So I have many options in the aerospace industry, and I'm focused in regulations, so certification and safety for airplane design. So I don't know what I'll do. The other thing is I love the students. I'm a teaching assistant. I TA at least one course every semester, and the students are the best. We have wonderful ITA undergrads, and they're absolutely wonderful. So I would be actually very sad to separate myself from this experience. So I will see. I'll invite you to my existential crisis party. Really excited about it.
Okay, we good? Any other questions, comments? Anyone in the chat? Okay. Well, Let's have a round of applause. Thank you so much, Andrea Brogan, Aspar, Laura, for coming in. Force-Space just loves working with the Public Scholars Program, and it was really great that everyone agreed to come in today. Thank you so much for this. We're going to be wrapping up the live stream and the Zoom also for anyone online. But just remember this conversation exists right away on our YouTube channel, so feel free to go home and watch it all over again and share it. And want to come back later on this afternoon at 2 p.m. for the Creative Writing Showcase. But in any case, have a great afternoon. Thank you.